Hi guys, hello, how are you? So I wanted to film this video because I took a picture to put on my Instagram, account, and I wanted to make sure I had the video to follow. But basically this is going to be my favorite decks for spring. I thought that this would be perfect because one, I am looking to switch out my winter decks from and bring out more of my springy stuff. So last night I went ahead and put a lot of my winter decks away and took out pretty much like everything that I want to work with in the spring season. So I have quite a few decks here. And I think I have to say too, just like side note, just because I have all of these decks here on the table does not mean that I probably won't work with all of them. But a good chunk of them I know I will most likely be reaching for. But that said, these are decks that I personally love for the spring season, and I'll tell you why. So when I think of spring, I think of flowers, plants, herbs, animals, butterflies, rainbow or color, earth energy. I think of like all of those things. So the majority of the decks that I picked have like that earthy, grounded nature feel to them. And if that's kind of like something that you are interested in, you may find that you will like what I have to show. So let's just get right into it and bring you guys just a little bit closer. Okay, so let's start with the tarot decks because I have a lot and the majority is Oracle, I will say. So let's start with the tarot first. So I only have 4. And always we'll start with Rider-Waite because I always have to have a Rider-Waite deck in my pile for decks that I want to work with for the month or the few months or the season. So I only picked one and the one that I definitely am being called to is one of my vintage Rider-Waites. So this is a vintage yellow box Rider-Waite deck, and it is one of the non-copyright decks. So this one that I happened to pick, I picked it for the sake of the box is all like tore up and it looks really old, and I thought it was going to look really nice with the photo that I took for my Instagram account. So kind of like picked it specifically for the look of the box. I have 3 pre-copyright Rider-Waites, and this is one of them. And this was one that I found on eBay. So there's writing on the cards. I may still use it. I really love that the person who sold the deck to me had written that his grandmother had passed away and this was her deck. So you know me, like talk to spirits here. So I really loved that. I felt that that was charming. So I purchased the deck. It was like very affordable. And even though there's writing on the cards, I feel like it brings character to the deck itself. So it's just really sweet. And that's why I picked it. So, and then also like these vintage Rider-Waites, the colors are so soft and like so much more pleasant to work with. And the cardstock is so beautiful. It's buttery and it's just a really, really nice version of the Rider-Waite. So gonna be working with a oldie but goodie. The Bohemian Cats Tarot is also one that I feel pulled to use in the springtime, mainly because obviously like cats, but mainly because of the borders of this deck. They're really, really nice. They have floral borders. The colors are really bright and like they stick out a lot, but the cards are just, it's the flowers for me. So those floral borders really do it for me. And I think that they look so nice in photos. A lot of times when I'm picking out my decks for working decks, I think about not just like what I like to work with, you know, like what's easy for me to connect with and interpret in readings, that especially for like those one-on-one sessions, but also like what photographs nicely, because every once in a while I will get booked for an email reading, so I'm taking pictures of the cards and I want to make sure that what I'm using is like gonna pop in the photos. So Bohemian Cats, definitely. The Herb Crafters Tarot. So this one, oh, this is another deck that I love to really take my time with, especially in email readings or if I read for myself. So the Herb Crafters Tarot has no humans in it, except for like arms and hands and, you know, but it is a herb-based tarot, and it is so, so, so pretty. The colors are really bright. They're rich and it's just really gentle. Like it has a very delicate feminine energy to it. And I just really love this deck. So the card backs are really pretty too. So I definitely love this deck, and it's something where if you don't get a lot, I guess like I could say I don't get much from the images other than I love the way they look. So I really have to resort to like my mental knowledge of the tarot meanings, because the pictures don't really do me anything. I don't really get much out of it. So that's why this is not necessarily a deck I will use for like one-on-one sessions, but it's definitely a beautiful deck to photograph, and it just gives you that feel of like working with the herbs and plants and all the beauty stuff. Lastly is the Antique Anatomy Tarot. This one has a blend of skeletons and flowers, and it's just gorgeous. It is definitely one of those decks that this one will come out for, you know, like the fall season or like Halloween season, you know, but it's also a deck that I pull out for spring. It's probably the only time that my skeletons really make an appearance in readings if it's not Halloween. But it's because the way the artwork is done with this, it's so tasteful and it's so classic. It's so, I don't know, it's just, it works. So I absolutely love this card, the Empress. It's probably one of my favorites. So as you can see, it just really works. So this one is a fun one to use along with like some of these other decks that I picked out. So those are my picks for tarot. So that's pretty much it. Like, most likely, not gonna lie, we'll probably just be working with the Rider-Waite majority of the time, but those other ones are gonna be really fun to kind of mix in the readings. So next, let's get into all of the Oracle decks. I have a lot. So I picked out Wild Medicine Herb deck. This one is mainly for photography, because again, it's not something that I don't get much out of it. You have these gorgeous hand-drawn or hand-painted pictures of the flowers and the plants. And then the back, you have like all this beautiful information about it. You get a little divination meaning, I think. Oh no, you get plant description, the historics of it, how to use the plant, ritual and lore, sorry. So you don't really get much of a divination. It's more of like a study deck for herbs. But I really, really like to pick it out for like kind of background images, or just kind of like to get that feel, or some knowledge of the plant. And sometimes, you know, I'll get an intuitive hit for what it means, but this is not a deck I will use to read for people. But I did pull it out because it is beautiful. It's art, it's artsy, and it's plant and flowers, and I don't know, it just goes with the whole theme. The Victorian Flower Oracle. Love this one. It has flowers. It's more of a like fairy tale-ish kind of a vibe. You have flower people. You get a little keyword. You get the name of the plant. So yeah, I use this deck for readings a lot. I love the artwork. It's so different and it's kind of fun to pair it. I'll show you the deck that I love to pair this deck with. So this one is out of print, and it's definitely a gem. It's one of my favorites from the Baba Studios decks. So the Victorian Flower Oracle, I love to use it side by side the Botanical Inspirations Oracle, because you get the flower people and then you get the actual like flowers. So this one, super, super pretty, and I love to use this in readings. You get that like vintage feel too, that look with the cards. And this one also, you get the plants or the flowers, you get a little bit about it, you get like a quote. And it's just, it works. So definitely, I will use this in readings. I've used this in readings, but I love to use these side by side. I just feel like they complement one another really well. So if you're looking for a botanical deck, this one could be probably a really good one to choose if you love that vintage floral look. This, oh, I love this. This is the Red Rose. So this actually reminds me, there is a deck coming out called the Rose Oracle, and I cannot wait. I think it comes out in March. So just in a few days, I should probably pre-order it. But it's called the Rose Oracle, and it's like all of these like vintage or different types of roses, and it has a very similar look to these cards. So you know I'm going to be getting that one. I can't wait. So that is that. This one, the Pythia Botanica Oracle. So this one also has like a very vintage feel to it. But I will say the guidebook is problematic. I don't know what happened. I think it was just the translation was just not that great. So it doesn't really make sense, unfortunately. So it is hard to read. It's hard to kind of get yourself to understand what the meaning of this card is. So for that reason, unfortunately, I do not use this in readings for people, especially if I'm doing live readings. I have used it once or twice in a video reading, but I did struggle, I will admit. I did struggle with, you know, what the hell does this card mean? So because of that, it's not very easy to work with. But it is beautiful, and it does photograph really, really nicely. So if you're like trying to get an aesthetic looking photo, this is a really nice deck to use. So I have it still in the pile, but unfortunately it's not very user friendly. Some really user friendly decks though. We have the Green Witch Oracle. This one is fun. I really, really like this one. So if you're into like those witchy or decks, you may like this one, especially if you're like a kitchen witch or you like to incorporate herbs and stuff into your craft. This one is fun. Beautiful card backs with the elements. And then you have these beautiful images of the, you know, fruits, vegetables, plants, whatever. And you also get like the element it's associated with. You get the keyword, and it tells you also what the thing is. It also gives you, I just noticed that it tells you an astrology symbol too for it. So the pumpkin is most likely Cancer. So that's kind of cool. Really, really pretty images. Like I said, the colors are, it's a simplistic kind of a deck. So this one, I love decks like this when they're so simple, because it's easy to match them with like a more busy tarot deck, for example. So these are kind of fun to kind of add to, you know, your reading. I love it. It's definitely a really good one. And the guidebook is juicy too, and it's in full color. I just love that. Like everything just kind of goes together. Now, if you're looking for another simplistic herb deck, here is one of my favorites, the Magical Herb Oracle. This one is really, really, really good. Really intuitive. I use this all the time in live readings. It's beautiful. Those are the card backs. And you get a simple image of the herb. You also kind of get another image too, to kind of give you your intuition, to kind of help you understand what this means. So I do appreciate that. I don't always pay attention to it though, I will be honest. Because the keyword itself, like it says a lot. So activation or expansion or radiate. So you kind of get, you know, a lot from the images, but beautiful, beautiful deck. And it has a nice guidebook as well, but I've never had to use it because I feel like I got a lot out of just looking at the image of the card or the meaning of it. So really love that one. I probably like it more than this one. I've definitely reached for this one way more in readings. The Earth Magic Oracle. Oh, this one is like Earth vibes for sure. The card images are so pretty. So here are the backs, lots of earthy vibes. And you just have these beautiful images. It's so easy to read. You get so much out of it. And there's also a whale in this deck. I probably won't be able to find it, but like the desert, vision quest, iceberg, submerged. So you get a lot of like landscape, the sun, radiance, summer solstice, or I should say. So it's really pretty, really pretty. Yes, there are some cards with humans in it, but it's not like every card, literally, like it's not. So it's a really pretty deck. It photographs really nicely as well. The Druid Plant Oracle. So this is another one that I really don't use often, but I cannot get rid of it. Like it's just one of those decks where it'll probably stay in my collection forever, simply because the pictures are so pretty. I just don't get much out of it. So you have gorgeous images of the cards. You have the picture. It had bigger borders, but I did a deck mod where I cut those borders off and I just left that single plant border, you could tell. But there's no keyword on the actual image to help you understand what this means. It's literally just like the plant. So that's why I don't use this in readings, because I'm not savvy enough in herbs to know what the metaphysical properties are and how to use that in a reading. So that's the only reason why I do not reach for this deck. But it does have a really rich guidebook. You can see it's huge and it's chunky and it has a lot of information. So if I do an email reading, then I will use this deck, because I'm behind the scenes in the email readings. I'm not live with anyone, so I could totally use the guidebook and I don't have any shame. But if I'm one-on-one with someone, I will not use this deck. So that's the only reason why I don't get a lot of work out of it. These last four are my absolute favorites. I have used these all the time in readings. I 100% recommend every single one. Starting with the Native Spirit Oracle. This is like my soul deck. I've mentioned this many times in other videos. This deck is the one for me. I freaking love it. It talks to my soul. It's so good. It's gotten a lot of love for me. So those are the card backs. The pictures, freaking gorgeous. So again, it's like a landscape kind of a deck. You don't get much out of the keyword. You do have to use the guidebook. So it's one of those decks where if I do use it for a client reading, I will definitely tell them that I'm going to be using the guidebook, because you have to, unless you memorized the deck enough. But so my guidebook is like very well used. I'm always reaching for it. And I love this deck for more inner soul type of readings, like really deep. This is not a deck I will use for like love, like a simple, you know, are we meant to be together forever? Kind of a question. This is more of like shadow work or like inner healing, or, you know, topics like that. I'll use this. The Power of Surrender cards. This has a very similar vibe to the Native Spirit. This one you can definitely use in live readings. So this is a surrender deck, and what it is it talks about all of the things that you need to let go of, release, surrender. It's so intuitive. You get a huge little phrase here, and then you get a nice paragraph that tells you even more of what that card is trying to convey. It is definitely a deck that I use probably on a daily basis. I probably have used it in so many different types of readings. It's intuitive and it really works. I love this deck. I've used it in the winter season. I'm gonna use it in the spring. I could see myself using it in the summer. I feel like this is like one of those decks where it's like an all year round kind of a deck. Shamanic Medicine. I love, love, love this one too. This one has the same kind of energy as the Native Spirit. It's definitely a deck where you're going to want to use the guidebook. I have used the cards without the guidebook because yes, you could get a lot of intuitive hits. You get this beautiful background in the back of the cards. So you could get a lot just from the images or the keywords, but it is one of those decks where you're going to want to use your guidebook to get more information, and it goes really deep. It's so good, and the pictures are so rich. And then also the cardstock is so like satin smooth and like matte, really beautiful. So totally recommend this, especially if you're into like the Native American energy, or if you're into like the earth-based, grounded, healing energy. This is so good. And lastly, the Gaia Oracle. This is a lot of earth energy. You know, just, I don't know, it just gives me feminine, divine feminine energy. You got these beautiful card backs with the little heart in the center. The artwork is beautiful. It's by, the artist is Tony Carmine Salerno, which they've done so many decks. So you would probably will recognize their artwork. If you've seen it, you know it's them. But it's so good. I love this deck. It reads really well for one-on-one sessions. And like I said, I just get that earth energy vibe from this. So that is why, I use this in my springtime readings. So yeah, that's the Gaia Oracle. So I do have quite a bit of decks on this table. Like I said, I probably won't be using all of them. Sometimes I just pull decks just because my soul feels called to them, but sometimes it takes like the right client or the right question for me to reach for some of them. So may not use all of them this season, but we shall see. But I am excited to bring out the plant decks. I do have a plant, what is it? I think I have a plant video. I don't think I have some of these decks though, because I don't think I owned them yet. But if I can find the link, I will put the link to that video in the description box so you guys can see what my whole plant-based deck, plant-based, my plant decks, like my collection. But I do believe I have some that I have not, I might have showed here, but I don't have in that video. So if I can remember and if I find it, I will link it for you guys, and then you guys can enjoy that too. But yeah, these are my decks for spring. This is what I'm going to be working with, and gonna have to place that order for that Rose Oracle. And I think there's also the, I think there's another deck that's coming out that's going to be like plant-based too. I have to check. I added a couple of them to my Amazon, you know, my little favorites thing. So I have to go and check and see. But yeah, love it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will talk to you guys soon in another video. Bye, my loves.